Welcome to part two in our two-part episode with Dr. Nwando Anyaoku. In episode one, we talked a little bit about Dr. Anyaoku's beginning in um, Nigerian medical school, then being inspired by UNICEF's State of the World's Children mission to become a pediatrician. And after a long career of 20 to 30 years in pediatrics, doing all the things that it takes to become a high level physician executive, and in that position, wanting to empower underrepresented women, especially to take up the reins of leadership. Because when you become successful, becomes about the legacy and about how to sustain the future. And Dr. Wando is really trying to do that and create a future where the voices at the tables of leadership will be diverse, and there will be the voices of women, and there will be the voices of underrepresented communities, and the voices of people of multiple different abilities. And so we're super excited to welcome Dr. Wando back and continue our conversation, which ended with why physician leadership brings something special to the tables of the CEO and the executive offices. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Um, we're going to I want to explore a little bit with you, Dr. Anyaoku, one more aspect of executive leadership, equity and diversity in executive leadership, and the challenges that still exist, and the challenge and where we need to go to next. I think what you're doing is fantastic. It's impactful, and with all change, we do need to start one by one, helping one person at a time. But then there's the systemic issues that make that change slow, that make that change difficult, even for the most empowered individuals, and that threaten the changes and the strides that you might make one by one. What do you think we need to do next?
Well, I'll take us a step back and say that it actually starts with you. It starts with managing your mindset and shifting your mindset, because that's the absolute first baseline step you have to take in order to make any change. Otherwise, we're all sitting and navigating what seems to be a predestined conclusion. And so the first thing you have to be able to do is tell yourself that that conclusion is not final and that you can make a difference. Having established that, then you start to make a change one at a time. And, when I talk about the challenges in equity and disparities, sometimes people take it personally. They feel like you're accusing them of individually doing something unfair to someone else, which for people in the helping profession as physicians, that's not how we define ourselves, and that's not what we intend to do. But to your point, it is systemic, it is baked into the system. Therefore, if you keep going with things the way they are, you are likely to keep perpetrating the same outcomes. And so that's part of the beauty of having a diversity of voices and lived experience at the leadership table, because those systems were created by policies, and those policies were created by people. And those people had one way of thinking or one worldview. When you have policies created by people with a diverse set of worldviews, then you have a much more robust and more equitable policy, because when everybody's saying one thing, someone over here can say, hold on a minute, this is how this would affect my portion of the pie, right? This is how this will affect people who identify like me or who worship like me, and things like that. And so that actually is the underlying impetus for having developing and strengthening and empowering a diverse cadre of leadership so that we have voices of women at the table, right? So when women at the table, then institutions think that it's important to have childcare, right? Or to support people with childcare because these women are saying, hey, I need support for this, right? And when women are at the table, they bring a different lens. And that's not to say that men can't bring those lenses, but it's not always as present for them. And likewise, when you have people who have different faiths, who have different, perspectives, the combs that, in my hospital, we actually changed the little combs in the baskets that you give to patients that are admitted. You know, those little pink bowls you get when you're admitted? You used to get these itty bitty combs. Well, if you have hair like mine, that's not going to do you any good. So we actually were intentional about giving the options for people whose hair is different, whose skin is different, to have to feel like when they're admitted in the hospital, oh, this hospital sees me. And they know that there are people like me who need a different solution, right? You're not giving them three combs instead of two. You're just giving them a comb that works for their hair. It's a tiny, tiny example, but that's just how policies can be different because of the people who are at the table making them.
Thank you so much. And there are indeed a growing body of best practices that institutions can follow to try to help create a more diverse and equitable workforce and leadership force. Because sometimes institutions may pursue diversity, but it is isolated to non leadership roles, right? So that's where we've kind of developed so far. In most companies, I'm not going to say every company, in a lot of companies, right? Diversity tends to work at the lower levels of pay, but at the upper levels of pay and leadership, perhaps less so. And so there are best practices. The more having one woman in a room with all men still makes it very difficult for that woman to speak. But when you add two women and there's support for your ideas and you don't feel like you're the only one having that voice, then people are more likely to speak. So it is not tokenism that gets us to diversity. It's a level of commitment and wanting change to bring these best practices forward.
I would absolutely agree with that. And I think that a lot of what, the work I do is not diversity, equity, and inclusion per se. Where I interface with that work is in the diversification of clinicians. Um, so the DEI workforce in my space really is more workforce facing, more culture of inclusion. They're doing all the teams. But when I look at health equity, where my work really focuses on access, outcomes, and experience of diverse patients and communities, right? And focus on delivering clinically and culturally competent or humble care, um, and partnering with community organizations to advance the needs of our diverse patients and communities. That's sort of my side of the coin. But where I squarely overlap with our DEI colleagues is in the diversification of the clinician workforce, because I do think that is in fact a health equity strategy. We know that concordance between patients and their provider or their physician, in whether it be their race or sexual identity, improves the patient's ability to understand and to be compliant and to pursue their optimal health. And yet it's so challenging to get people of those diverse backgrounds through medical school and into and through a professional career as a clinician. And to your point earlier, a lot of organizations recognize diversity to a point, right? And in the clinician space, they tend to recognize it in terms of recruitment. We're going to do a diverse hire. We're going to hire somebody who's diverse. Well, that's great. But having hired them, do you support them, right? Do you give them, support them with mentors, with coaching? Do you support them with sponsors? Do you have a way to advance them? Because if you hire them and you leave them in one spot and overlook them for promotion year after year, they're not going to stay, right? And if you find that those physicians are othered and constantly made to feel like they're not part of the whole and are therefore not comfortable, what are you doing about that? And how are you being intentional about creating a more welcoming and supportive environment? And if you don't do that, then they leave, and then you rinse and repeat. And once you've done that 2 or 3 times, it becomes true that clinicians from diverse backgrounds don't do well here. But the truth is that we didn't provide a structure to support them. And that's really what my aim is, to really advance the coaching, mentoring, and support of underrepresented minorities and women, to encourage them in their growth, in physician leadership, in building their voice and having an impact over the long term.
I feel that deeply. I've seen that deeply, repeated over and over. Um, Whatever institution you work with, obviously they find the importance of this and they have you as an officer to carry that out. That is not common. I have seen the first woman to join the all male group, and the things that the men don't change their mindset, yet the woman is supposed to come in and make it a more diverse arena. Everybody around them is only used to it. Same thing when you hire the first Black person, the first Asian person, the first Hispanic person, etc. Um, unless everybody understands and is willing to start paying attention and making a change, it does become a setup for that hire and for the whole team to say, yeah, this doesn't work. What do we need to make that happen?
We need support. We need, I say everybody needs a dream team. Every woman, every underrepresented physician, minority group physician, you need a dream team. And the dream team I describe as the following: everyone needs a mentor, a sponsor, and a coach. And a mentor is sometimes the same, but often different from a sponsor. A mentor is someone who can come alongside you and say, I have been where you're going. This is how I went. This is what is possible. This is what I tried. What that relationship allows you to see what's possible and allows you to dream and validate your feelings, right? So that sometimes you're asking yourself whether what you're hearing is what you're hearing, but having a mentor is incredibly valuable, to advance your mindset in that space. It's a relationship, and it's challenging if you find yourself the first woman in a room full of men. Who's going to be your mentor? Your mentor could be one of the other guys if you find an ally. But the wonderful thing in today's world is that across the internet, you can find somebody else in another organization not far away who's doing something that's interesting to you. And you can reach out and have a coffee and build a relationship and have developed that. I mean, I've had to craft mentoring relationships for myself where I'm in a space where there isn't necessarily one readily available. The sponsor is a little bit different. That's somebody who is in a position of authority who can speak your name in rooms where you are not, right? So they're starting a clinic in this facility and the decisions are being made at a retreat with people, none of whom are you, but somebody in there knows that Dr. T is working on this project. She's passionate about this. Why don't we give her a chance? Now, this is not something that is easily accessible for a lot of women and certainly not for a lot of underrepresented minorities because you don't have those legacy relationships. So, really having someone who knows you, knows your accomplishments, knows your goals and dreams, and is willing to put their reputation on the line by saying, I would like to recommend this person for this role, incredibly valuable. But once again, it's a relationship. And that person is taking a significant risk. So it's up to you to make sure that they have the right information, that they know what you'd like and what your aspirations are and what your accomplishments have been, so that they'll have the confidence to recommend you. And the third part of your dream team is a coach. A coach is an investment in yourself. Unlike the others that are more ongoing relationships, you invest in yourself by having someone to hold space for you, to process your thoughts, to process the challenges you're facing, to recognize that you're fully resourced to solve the problems that are facing you. And as a physician, I found that most of us, you only get a coach when you're in trouble, right? It's like you didn't finish your charts, you need a coach. And you got a bad patient review, you need a coach. And so for a lot of physicians, we think of coaching in a punitive tense. But I think that coaching as a developmental tool is incredibly valuable because, as we talked about, the journey from being a physician to being a leader requires some work and requires some space holding and some trying and some errors along the way, and a coach helps you to shorten that path. It helps you to guide you on that path. So if you're in an institution who will pay for coaching for you, you should absolutely take advantage of it. If they won't, it's worth it for you to do that, make that investment yourself, in yourself, because it makes a difference in the long run. It shortens the number of errors you make, and it helps you to stiffen your spine and say, you know what, this is who I am. So when you're doing that work on your mindset, having someone hold that space for you is so incredibly valuable. So your dream team, what we all need on this journey: a mentor, a sponsor, and a coach.
I want to amplify what you just said a little bit. Please, if you're listening to this, a mentor and a sponsor are important, and don't be passive. They're not going to come to you and say, "Hey, I'd love to mentor you. Hey, I'd love to sponsor you." You will need to do the work to approach people and say, "Will you mentor me? Will you sponsor me?" People often find this to be a very high compliment. And you won't know in the beginning of the relationship whether it's going to work out for you. Sometimes it takes a while to develop that relationship and know if it's going to work. And just know that you can have different mentors for different things. There's different things you want to grow in, and you can have a mentor for management. You can have a mentor for leadership. You can have a mentor for different things. Go out and find those mentors, because especially if you are an underrepresented person, those mentors are not going to be a normal part of the system for you. And coaching, you have complete control over this one. It is an investment in you. I would not be where I am today without coaching. I'll stand here and say that proudly. It is it's not only an investment in you, it's a commitment device to you saying to yourself, "This is important and valuable to me, and I believe in it enough that I'm going to have a coach, and that coach will help you find your path." What's special about coaching outside of mentors and sponsors is that they don't tell you their path, they help you find your very specific and personalized path. And lastly, I want to say that if you're in the majority group, you're not off the hook. I'm sorry. Yes, these women, these underrepresented minority groups, these underrepresented people of different abilities, they're going to need somebody that's walked in their shoes to help them along. But you're not off the hook. That doesn't mean you get to be passive. Nothing changes. So if you're a man, if you're in a majority group, you have to consciously do this work. You have to get uncomfortable and approach that woman, that underrepresented person, and say, "How can I mentor you? How can I help you?" It's going to require you to learn. It's going to require you to be uncomfortable, but it is the path to real change.
Absolutely.
And it requires a lot of listening and a lot of humility and all the things that works for our patients to have also better experiences that are culturally competent. Be humble, be a learner, and just receive a little bit. All right. um, with that, I like to come to our genie moment in the podcast. If you could ask for anything, Dr. Anyaoku, what would you ask for to help make progress in our lifetime for healthcare equity?
If I could ask for anything, I would ask for all of us to recognize the divine humanity in every other human being. That each of us is a vessel for divine power and presence. And recognizing that in each encounter, whether it be on the street, but most especially in that sacred encounter between physicians and patients, it makes all the difference in the world. You don't have to worry about stereotypes or worry about stories that you've heard because with each person you encounter, you recognize that you're in the presence of the divine and you honor that relationship and that encounter in that way. I think that would make all the difference.
That is beautiful. I think it's very hard right now for some of our physicians who are working very hard or suffering their own moral injury to bring that presence of the moment and presence of self into that sacred interaction, and they lose that divine humanity experience. And I just want to say that if you're feeling that, you're not a bad person, but you do, there is a better place that you can be and that your patients can be. And if you can be centered and healed internally, what you can get in those human interactions is so divine for you as well, and so empowering and uplifting for your patients. So take the time, get a coach, um, process your pain and your damage, and help heal yourself, because it's the world will be better for you and for your patients. And I want to add one more. I love thinking about the future. We didn't talk about our healthcare trainees. So much of what we're talking about is anchored in this past and this healthcare system that we have experienced. There's so much we can do to create a different healthcare future for our trainees. What do you think you would want to do first?
I think what we have to do is sort of what you talked about, which is to heal ourselves, to reconnect to the joy of medicine. Medicine is a calling. And none of us went into it saying, oh, shucks, well, I'm going to just do this thing and right. No, we came in because we had a calling on our lives to help people. And so in the over the years, we feel beat down, we feel torn, and we feel like it's not worth it. But part of the Hippocratic Oath is that I will support the children of my friends in the pursuit of our noble profession. And when sometimes I talk to physicians and they're like, your kid wants to go to medical school? Are you sure? That just breaks my heart, right? It means that we have lost that beauty and that passion of our calling. And we first have to reconnect to it so that we don't try to so that we can actually be present to support the future generation because come what may, we're getting older and we're going to need some people to actually take care of us, and we need people who are committed and invested, but people who are also equipped with new technology and new ways of thinking. These kids see things in different ways that we couldn't even imagine, but we must help them to see that and build that future anchored on the central important theme of the life of that patient. The technology, the AI, and all of it all can only exist in service of that divine encounter, that patient. So and that's what we can bring. That's how we can bring that thread through. It's always about the patient. It's always about that divine encounter. Everything else is only in service of that.
What a beautiful conversation. I thank you so much for your time and taking us on this beautiful journey. Dr. Wando Anyaoku, how can our audience connect with you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, on my website, wandoanyoku.com. And I would love to chat with you, support you in any way that you might need on your journey, and come and talk to your groups or your colleagues. This is important, and we are the Calvary.
And Dr. Anyoku also offers coaching services that we have both spoken about how important this is in your personal and professional development. In our podcast, we've frequently highlighted and explored the vital role of collaboration between public and private enterprises and government support for sustainable health equity innovation. Please, if you are a minister of health, public health officer, or a dedicated public official working to enhance healthcare access and equity, we really want your voice on our show. Share your valuable insights and perspectives with our audience. Contact us at drt@haew.org to secure your spot on the podcast. Listeners, we need your support also. Please share today's episode with a friend. Leave us a review. Share your thoughts. Interested in being a guest? Please email us. Visit haew.org to learn more, join us, partner, or contribute. Let's all amplify the conversation for a healthier and more equitable world.